Hi, everyone. We've got a few people trickling in, so I'm just going to give it another minute or two before we get started. Glad to see a lot of familiar names for joining us today. So great. We're going to go ahead and get started today. And just so you know, we are recording this and it will be sent out tomorrow. And throughout the call, you're going to be getting an email with your Grubhub certificate. So while you can't be enjoying lunch with us today, you can enjoy that another time. So great. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the call. I'm Kim, your customer success manager here at Dean Dorton. There we go. We're going to talk today about taking your reporting to the next level. You know, we know it's important that you are able to access your most up-to-date information and data in order to manage your successful business. And you also want to be using the most modern tools that are available out there to make, your reporting effective. So today we're going to feature Vivid Reports. Vivid Reports is a modern solution that provides financial reporting and budgeting for any business, and that includes users of Sage Intacct, Business Central, Dynamics GP, and there's probably some others that it supports. But Vivid works by turning Microsoft Excel, which everyone uses, into a presentation and an analysis workspace so that your data and information is easily accessible and it's ready to share. So today, Christine is going to take us through how you can simplify your reporting and budgeting analysis, how you can capture your transactions and audit your changes. She's going to show us how Vivid Reports allows you to drill down on your financial results so you can get more detail out of that. She's going to show you how to use automation to share reports with your directors, your stakeholders, your C-level people who need those reports. She's going to show you how to get the most live and current information across your different operations. And she's going to show you how to combine some of that, those results. So anyway, you'll notice the chat feature at the top of your screen. So anytime you have a question, enter that into the chat and we'll make sure that those are covered. And like I said, this is going to be recorded and sent out later this week. And you'll also get your Grubhub certificate probably during the webinar here since you're attending. But now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christine with Vivid Reports so she can show us how to take that reporting to the next level. Christine?
Hi, Kim. Thank you, Kim. Thanks to Dean Dorton for inviting us to present Vivid Reports to your clients. I'm really excited to take this next 45 minutes or so and giving you a very good overview of Vivid solutions. So who I am, who Vivid is. So my name is Christine Boisvert, and I'm part of technical sales here at Vivid Reports. I also am a report trainer. So I work very closely with all of our clients, making sure they're being trained on our solution, they're getting more and more comfortable with our solution, and also build these long-lasting relationships and making sure that our clients are continuously happy with our solution. So what I've got planned for today is we will definitely go through. I have a handful of slides that I'm going to be going through. I'll be going through those quite quickly because I do want to spend the most of the next 45 minutes on the demonstration. I think there's just definitely more value when you see the product versus going through slides. And I'll be demonstrating two of our products, our Vivid CPM product, which is all about financial reporting, and we also have our Vivid budgeting product, which is an add-on module to the financial reporting piece. So if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to use the chat window. I'll also pause throughout different points in the presentation and just to stop and check to see if you have any questions. And just feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. So who we are. So Vivid Reports has been around since 1999. We've been doing this a very long time. Actually, the first ERP that we integrated with back in 99 was Dynamics GP. Over the years, we've evolved a lot. Our product has definitely matured, and we integrate today with over 60 different ERPs, including the entire Dynamics suite, including Business Central and Dynamics 365, but also Sage Intacct. That's, again, one of our more popular ERPs within our client base. So one thing I always like to mention when we talk about Vivid is just how customer-centric we are. I just believe, you know, customer service today, for me, is become more important than ever. Being able to reach someone, being able to, you know, talk to someone on a consistent basis and not having to re-explain your situation to a new person every time, to me is important. It's important to build, again, those long-lasting relationships, being reachable, resolving your question, resolving your issue or whatever that may come up in a timely fashion. And I think that's what all of our clients have experienced with Vivid. We are very responsive, we are reachable, and again, we want to build these long-lasting relationships. So who our clients are? We have about 400 customers across North America, and they vary significantly. We may have a Vivid customer with a one-user license using Vivid with QuickBooks Online to very large customers with hundreds and hundreds of Vivid licenses in their environment using maybe a more enterprise level ERP. So the front end of our application is exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're using it with Dynamics GP or Sage Intacct or Business Central, everything is the same. So we sell two products. We sell Vivid CPM, which stands for Corporate Performance Management, and that is what I'll be demonstrating today. It's all around financial reporting. It's all around your general ledger accounts, your general ledger segments, your reporting trees, along with budgeting and forecasting. And we also have Vivid Flex. Vivid Flex is similar to something like Crystal Reports or SQL Reporting Services or Power BI, where it's an ad hoc reporting solution. You do need to know, you need to pick and choose which tables you want to report off of. You need to understand database relationships, table relationships, views, things like that. So it's a little more of a technical tool. But today we'll be focusing primarily on financial reporting and budgeting. When we talk about implementation, so Vivid Reports is a product that's very easy to implement. It is Microsoft Excel based. So right out of the gates, the clients are using something they're already familiar with. You don't necessarily have to spend time during training on how to teach clients how to make things bold, how to shade different columns, how to create a variance column, how to create a percent of sales column. That's just your typical Excel formulas, which clients will already know how to do that right from the beginning. So when we go through training, we are simply teaching you how to integrate your Sage or GP general ledger information into Vivid, into Excel, and how do you make those reports refreshable? How do you drill down into the activity of those GL accounts, the transactions, etc. The typical estimate that we give on training and implementation for financial reporting is about 8 hours. After those 8 hours, you will have all the training you need in order to build your financial reports, making sure they're balanced, being able to drill down, being able to distribute these reports to your managers, etc. With the budgeting solution, we add another 8 hours. So 2 days of training is about all you need to be fully trained with our products. We record all of our training sessions. We do use GoToMeeting. We record our sessions, and then we publish those recordings into our customer portal, where you can download those recordings and keep them on file. And to be honest, my clients have watched those videos over and over again, because it's very hard to absorb everything that we go through, particularly in that first training session. There's a lot that we go through. I tell clients, don't worry about writing notes, because the recording will capture everything, and you can always go back and rewatch those recordings. Even if it's a year down the road, you have someone new starting with your organization and they need to get familiar with Vivid, those recordings will always be available to you. Some of the features that come with Vivid CPM, and I'll be going through these during the demonstration, but control panels or reporting trees, multiple ways to drill down into your values. We also have a web application. So this is a web client. It's a relatively new product. It's been out for about 3 years, but it's an excellent option when you need to distribute a large amount of reports to a large number of users. And it avoids needing Excel, and it avoids having to have anything installed on the workstation. And it's also compatible with any device. So if you have any iPad or Mac users, our web application is fully compatible. With that, when you're distributing these reports, security is really important. You want to make sure that your clients or your recipients are only seeing what they've been given access to, and that our security has been very well set up. You have a lot of flexibility on making sure that they're only seeing what they've been given access to. So for example, you can even restrict end users being able to see transactions in payroll accounts or legal or bonuses accounts, etc. You can restrict it right down to the account level. This is a screenshot of our web application. So again, it can be used on any device, whether it be an iPad or a Mac computer or something like Google Chrome. It's an excellent way to distribute your reports without needing anything installed on the workstation, and it does not even require Excel. So turning now into our budgeting module. So when clients come to us and they're experiencing budget challenges, typically it's because their Excel spreadsheets have gotten out of control. They are linked from one to another, to another, to another, and then consolidating this information is very time consuming. Even just compiling the information, if you want to show on these budget spreadsheets your actuals, the most current actuals, up to date, and then taking all of this information and putting it in a format that you want to import back into the ERP. All of that is very, very time consuming. So what Vivid will allow you to do is to keep the layout of your budget spreadsheets, because that's what your budget managers are comfortable with, but we're streamlining everything else. So compiling the information on these budget spreadsheets, consolidating this information, and exporting it into a friendly format to put it back into the ERP, Vivid will take care of all of that. And on top of that, we have, of course, additional features, such as we're not just talking about budgets. It can also be forecasts. It can be multi-year plans. Vivid allows you to have an unlimited number of budgets in our software. And we also have additional features to capture budget transactions. So maybe you want to capture detailed information on your marketing campaign, on your travel budget, on maybe your capital assets, things like that. And we also keep track of all changes that have been made to a budget, along with attaching your assumptions or your notes to a budget. So I'll be going through that in detail during the demo. So what's included with Vivid? So when we talk about the cost of Vivid, we'll always ask you, how many licenses do you need? And they are named licenses. And what kind of licenses do you need? Okay, so we have 3 different types of licenses available. We have report builders, which are essentially your Vivid administrators. We have analyzers, which I call power viewers, and we have basic viewer licenses. Each one of those licenses have a different price point. Other things that are included with Vivid are multi-currency. So if you're an international company and you need to report in different currencies and consolidate information for a consolidated report, all of that is included with Vivid. We also include 8 hours of support. And this again comes back to my comment about being customer centric. We include 8 hours of support every year with your maintenance. And that's because, you know, we're not in the business to nickel and dime our customers for every time they have a question. We want you to give us a call without fearing an invoice. We want you to call us with questions like, I added a new account. How do I get it into Vivid? I added a new company. How do I get that into Vivid? I added a new department. Those are things that may not happen often, and it's easily forgotten. So we have a support email that we monitor consistently. And we also share our phone numbers with our clients and our extensions because we welcome, again, those conversations, and we're happy to talk to our clients. So a little bit about the infrastructure of Vivid. So what do you need in order to run Vivid Reports? Vivid Reports is a data warehouse. So it does require SQL Server. If you're using something like GP on-premise, typically we will put the Vivid database on-premise in the same location as your GP environment. If you're using something like Sage Intacct or Business Central, typically the data is not on-premise, it's in the cloud. Vivid can also reside in the cloud. You may have your own cloud environment that has a SQL Server. We could put Vivid on that environment, or Vivid also offers hosting options. So we can host your environment in a multi-tenant environment, and that cost starts at $600 per year. Now, using a data warehouse model instead of real time, for example, because you might be asking, well, okay, if it's a data warehouse, how often does that information get synchronized between your accounting system and Vivid? So there's multiple ways that that information is going to get synchronized. It's going to be set on a schedule. So typically we'll set up once every hour, or it could be once a day, it could be once every couple hours. It just depends on how much volume you're putting in the ERP throughout the day. But during month end, it can be a busy time. You're entering a lot of transactions. You're trying to wrap up your financial statements. You need to get them out. So within our application, so within the Excel add-in, we do have the ability to trigger that integration immediately. That synchronization is very fast. We're not talking about a data mart. That can be a taboo word for any GP customers out there that are using Management Reporter. It's an integration that occurs usually within a minute. Okay, again, it depends whether you have one company or 50 companies, but it's usually around a minute it takes to sync the data. Also, when you're refreshing those Vivid reports, you are refreshing off of the data warehouse. Okay, and that to me is an advantage. I think that's a huge benefit because all the data resides in its own SQL database. So that means if you're upgrading Sage Intacct or if you're upgrading to a new version of Business Central, all of that data within Vivid is still hasn't been touched. So typically, this has been our experience with Business Central and GP, is if you're performing an upgrade, it will have zero impact on Vivid. Because remember, typically the software companies are not changing the GL tables. They may be adding information, which is fine, to the GL tables, but if they're changing, they're typically not going to change a field name, an existing field name, which is why you can upgrade your ERP and it will have no impact on Vivid. The other thing that I want to mention is that it makes Vivid transferable. Again, that's really important. There's a lot of talk out there about GP, and some clients are deciding to move their GP environment to something else, maybe something in the cloud like Business Central. All of those reports that you may be running with Vivid, with Dynamics GP, would follow you. So in other words, you decommission your GP server, you'll take that Vivid database and put it up in the cloud, and all of those Vivid reports that you were using with GP will remain intact in that Vivid database. So even if you you switch from GP to something else, you'll always be able to go back and refresh those historical reports. Any questions on that? Typically, I do get some questions on that piece. I'll just stop here and see if there's any questions.
There's none in the chat, Christine.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I have a couple more slides and then we'll jump into the demo. If there are any GP customers out there and you're using Management Reporter, we do have a conversion utility, or if you're using FRX, we also have a conversion utility. This is a great way to get up and running with Vivid very quickly, but we do also want to make sure you go through the training, and we'll show you how to maintain these reports, how to change these reports, etc. This is a snapshot of our toolbar, and it's also a legend of the licenses that we offer. And so again, a report builder will include everything. That's essentially your Vivid administrator. And we have a report analyzer, which is what I call a power viewer and a basic viewer. And I'll go through during the demo what options in the menu bar are tied to each. And then within these licenses, you always have the option to add on the budgeting functionality. Okay, when we quote, just so you know, when we quote budget licenses, so if you go ahead and purchase a budget builder license, it is inclusive of the financial reporting. And when we do the implementation, we will start with the financial reporting training session prior to implementing the budgeting piece. It is a prerequisite to implement the budgeting piece. Okay, there's my contact information. Feel free to email me, or you can definitely email the Dean Dorton team. They'll be able to provide you additional information on the software. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into Excel. I'll assume everybody can see my Excel sheet right now. So we support all versions of Excel. It's a small, Vivid Reports is a small add-in that gets installed. So I'll go ahead and log in. So these logins are typically managed by the finance team. You don't necessarily need to have IT involved. And I'm logging in as administrator, so I have access to everything. Somebody else that might be logging in, like a viewer, they'll see a much smaller version of this toolbar with much fewer options. So I'll go ahead and click Main. This is our file list. This is a great way to centralize your reports, making sure that everybody's using the same version of the report. I'm going to go ahead and double click. You'll notice here, this is a very basic income statement. Nothing super fancy. The bolding, the shading, this totaling, that's just all Excel formulas. If I click over here, the variance column, this is also just an Excel formula. But over here, this is where Vivid's going to populate these values. That's going to be coming from the Vivid database. And you'll see that I do not have any formulas in the Excel cells. And that, again, is a key difference between Vivid and other Excel-based solution. We store our configurations centrally on the server, and I'll get into that momentarily. But that's a key difference that makes Vivid low maintenance. If you had to have a formula in every single one of these cells, well, that can get out of hand. Vivid stores one central formula for this whole row. Okay, so if you need to change an account range, you've added a new account, you make the change once, or if you need to insert a new row, you make the change once, and it's going to update all the columns all at once. Now I'll go ahead and click Control Panel. These are my prompts. Control Panel, think of your prompts as a reporting tree. So I've got a reporting tree that was set up. We go through this during training. This is tied to different areas of your chart of accounts. It's fully customizable. You can roll it up any way you want. And then based on security, whoever's logged into Vivid may or may not see all the options on this drop-down list. Okay, everybody can be using the same spreadsheet, but based on their security settings, they're not going to see all these options. So I'm going to go ahead and pick New York State. I'll run it for the month of July. You can pick a year as well. You can pick a currency. And I'm going to refresh the report. So you'll see these values. These are static values. You can share this spreadsheet with an unlimited number of users, and they do not require a Vivid license. It's just a static spreadsheet, no different had you entered the values manually. Okay. But with Vivid, you have the ability to refresh the report with the most current balances, and now you can start drilling down. So this is really what I love about Vivid. I'm just going to click on this drill down window here, and that is by far the most common window used within our client base. And all Vivid users have access to this drill down window. So there's the 34,679. There's the total of 34,679. It's a roll up of these GL accounts. You can pivot this information and total it based on the natural account. Maybe you want to total it based on location, etc. Let's go back and look at all segments. If I click on any of these accounts, there's the transaction that make up this total. This information is all coming from your ERP. Remember, there's that integration. We pull what we need from the ERP into the Vivid environment. So all this information is part of our integration. It's part of our built-in integration. We do this all the time. If I click on these transactions down below here, I can click on details, and it just provides me additional information on that transaction. Any of these fields I can bring over into this window simply to avoid the extra click. I can also look at all the transactions all at once. So there's the 34,679. There's the total of all the transactions for all those accounts. I can export this to Excel if I need to reconcile anything. I can even drill down into the journal entry from this window. You'll see as I click on these other cells, the window automatically refreshes. If I look at, I'm on my advertising and promotion. If I click on this particular account, I've got an AP transaction. I'm using a paperless AP system, and I can link those images directly from this Vivid balance or this Vivid transaction to the image. And we integrate with a number of different paperless AP solutions. We don't store the images in our own database. We simply want to link our transaction to wherever the image is. So that's just a question we'll always ask is, what paperless AP solution are you using? And does that company offer a link or a way to connect to those images, whether they be on-premise or in the cloud? A lot of companies do allow that. Okay, now these other windows that I want to show, they are part of our analyzer license. Remember, I talked about the Power Viewer. So a Power Viewer can do everything that I've just shown you so far, but they have access to additional drill down windows. So if I click on drill across, this is a great window to look at my trends. So my cursor right now is on the 11,221, and I ran this report for July of 2022. There's 11,221, and this is my period 7, so it's the month of July. This is what I did in June, in May, April, March, etc. This year, last year. I can add as many years as I want into this matrix. I can add budget information or forecast information as well. I have a little graph here that's included. It just compares year over year. I can also switch this to a timeline view. So how have I done since the beginning of time on this particular expense? And you'll see as I click these other cells, it just automatically refreshes. You can export this information to Excel, and you can also drill down into the transactions directly from this window. So I really like this window. I think it's a great window to use if you want to look at your trends. Drill compare. That's a great window to look at your variances. So if you're comparing, in this case, I'm comparing this year versus budget, and I've got a $455 variance. That variance is highlighted in orange because I've got Excel conditional formatting set up on this column, and I've set my threshold to be 300. So if I change this, let's say to 1,000, now it's not highlighted. So those are nice ways that you can make your financials more interactive. You can start building some KPIs, some charts, some graphs, etc. Now, this variance, how do I know which location, which account is causing this variance? You may have a highly summarized report, like total sales, total COGS equals your net profit. Well, with the drill compare, you can click on drill compare, and I'm comparing column E, which is my actuals, with column F, which is my budget. And now I've got column E, so this is actual versus budget. I can sort it based on the variance, And now I can click on the account number and drill into the transactions. So you can really assess your variances directly from the drill compare window. And I'm doing it at, the current month, this year versus budget, but you can do it year to date, this year versus last year. You can do it any which way you'd like. So a few other sample reports that I want to show you before I jump into budgeting. Here's a 12-month summary report with a chart. So let's go ahead and refresh that. So I'm refreshing this top information from from Vivid, sorry. And if I click on any of these values, I can click drill down and drill into the accounts and the transactions, and this is all going to get refreshed. But this Excel chart is simply that. It's an Excel chart. There's a ton of chart and graph functionality that comes with Excel. There's a ton of information in Google on how to build charts and graphs. And you can, again, start making your reports a little more like dashboards, a little more, KPIs, etc. Something like this, you've got, again, a 12-month trend report. I've got a percent column. This percent column is a very basic if-then statement. That's just Excel. Let's go ahead and refresh that. One thing that I wanted to point out is this information here. If you look at these rows, these are the same rows that I used on that initial report. So if I go back to, if I go back over here under detail, I've got revenue is drafting, consulting, surveying, and freight revenue. If I go back to this report, I have those same rows. Now behind the scenes, Vivid is pointing to filters. These filters, and here I'll just go ahead and show you briefly how this is stored. So Vivid uses comments. Don't be alarmed by this XML code. You don't need to understand that. But if we go into the building section of the toolbar now, this is your report builders. Your report builders want to know, what's included in this, and I need to make a change. I need to make this range wider because I added a new account. So if I click on Filter Builder right here, I like to call that my filing cabinet. This is my filing cabinet, and I've got an income statement file folder, and I've got 35 pages within that file folder. I'm highlighted on this yellow consulting because that's where my cursor is right now. And over here, this tells me the range. So I'm saying segment 1 of my chart of accounts is between this number and this number. If I added a new account that falls outside of that range, I can simply change this, click save, and now that line is going to be updated automatically. When I click refresh, that's going to be included, and you'll see how this number changed. It was 5,000, now it's 5,500. Look what happens over here under detail. I didn't make any changes to this report. Look at this value, okay? There's 5,300. Let's change that. And you'll see how it changed automatically. This is where I'm saying where Vivid stores our configurations centrally. You make the change once and it's going to roll down to all your reports immediately. Vivid is very low maintenance because of that type of design. Other things that I want to point out is here you can have, again, same rows, but now instead of my reporting tree, I've got all my locations set across the top. So again, that's very simple to set up. You can click on Control Panel and you can say, well, I want to see, year to date March, fiscal 2022, and I want to show actuals. Or maybe I want to show budget information. You can do that as well. Okay, I just want to point out 2 more features before I jump into budgeting. One is automation. So automation is a great way to distribute your reports quickly. So if you have a large number of departments, you need to send out your reports for each department manager. You're not going to create, 20 different income statements. You're going to create one, and that's going to be your master income statement. Then you're going to use automation to distribute those income statements by department to each recipient. We don't want to get back into that habit of having all these spreadsheets you have to maintain. You're going to use automation. You're going to maintain a handful of spreadsheets. Those will be your master sheets. And then you let automation replicate those spreadsheets for each of your departments, and you can roll them up different ways. You can say, you know, John has these 5 locations, and Sherry, she's got these 6 locations, etc. You can set up those jobs all pointing to the same income statement. And then the other thing I want to mention is this report check. I love this feature that when you're building reports and you're wanting to make sure they balance, this report check will come nice and it'll come handy, because you want to check for missing accounts, you want to check for duplicate accounts. It will do that really well. And then one other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention is the term vividizing. We use that term a lot. And what that means is, in our first training session, we want you to bring an income statement, for example, to the training session. Typically, your income statement, it's in Excel, or you can export it to Excel, and it's already all formatted. If you look at something, you know, like this, you already have all of this information. This is already a calculation. This is already a sum. It's already bolded. All the cosmetic changes to your report is already done. So I don't want to have to go through and redo all that from scratch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some columns that Vivid needs. I'm going to insert some rows here that Vivid needs, and we're going to activate Vivid on these cells, okay? Because these will be coming from Vivid, but this I'm going to leave that as an Excel formula. So we're simply going to vividize your existing reports, whether it be an income statement or balance sheet or trend analysis reports. We're simply going to vividize those reports so that instead of having this linked to, you know, 5 other spreadsheets, we're going to just let Vivid do the heavy lifting. And that's why our implementations are really short. We're simply teaching you how to vividize your existing reports. And of course, we'll teach you how to build brand new reports if you'd like. But getting you up and running on your existing income statements is typically done very quickly. So that's what I wanted to cover on reporting. I'm going to pause here, check for questions before I jump into budgeting.
No questions in the chat, Christine.
All right, I guess I've blown them away. They're in awe and they're speechless. All right, so I'm going to close this and I'll open budget input sheet. So now we have to change our mindsets a little bit. We were before budgeting here, we were all about reporting. It's all about pulling the balances, rolling them up, drilling down, you know, everything's coming from your ERP. With budgeting, and this is a sample budget spreadsheet, we have a combination of reporting here. So these actuals are coming from the ERP. But then over here, I've got a forecast section, and I have my annual budget section over here. I've shaded in yellow, and I just chose that color, but it's a visual cue to the end user that, hey, I would like for you to enter values in these cells. How you come up with these values, Vivid doesn't care. These can be calculations, they can be linked to other spreadsheets, or Vivid has a number of different ways that you can populate these values. So very simply, you know, if we go back to over here, this section, this is all, you know, refreshable. If you click on refresh, this is going to refresh the most current values. If I click on drill down, I can drill down into the accounts, into the transactions. That's all part of reporting. But over here now, and I'm going to focus just on the annual budget, I'm going to start entering values here. So if I click on that cell, and I'll just simply put 2,500. Okay. And keep in mind with Vivid, when I call it a budget, it can also be a forecast. We can label our budget information different ways. It's fully customizable. You can have an unlimited number of types of budgets. You may have a quarterly budget, quarterly forecast. It doesn't matter. It's behind the scenes. When we configure the spreadsheet, we'll tell it, where am I saving this value? Is it in budget or is it in forecast? And you can preload a forecast with actuals. You can copy a budget from one to another. You can open and close a budget. So if you want to lock it down, you can do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and I entered that value. And now over here in the budgeting section, I'm going to click commit. When you click commit, it does a whole bunch of validation. It checks, is the budget open? Do you have access to this budget? Does the GL account exist? Because Vivid will save these budget values at the GL account level into the Vivid database. Okay. I always tell clients to pay attention to what's going on here. So this is saying that 16 values match this, what I have in Vivid. So these are the same values that I have in Vivid, but there's one new change. So there's one budget cell ready to be committed. So let's go ahead and click commit. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to click review. If you click review, this tells you what it's going to save. So it's telling you I'm going to be saving $2,500, okay, into this GL account and this fiscal year into this fiscal period in this company. Okay, so I'll go ahead and commit that. Okay, so now that value's been pushed into the Vivid database. I can change it. So let's say I wanted to change it to 4,800. So let's go ahead and change it. Let's commit it. And I can also keep track of all the historical changes. So if I click on this value and click on audit, it tells me I originally saved it as $2,500 and I changed it, not even a minute later to 4,800. And it also keeps track of which spreadsheet it came from. Okay, we keep track of all the changes that are made to the budget. And I'm looking at it from the spreadsheet, but you can also look at that from the budget manager section. You can also attach your notes, assumptions. So if I click on this, I can say here, testing notes with Dean Dorton webinar. I can save that. I can copy and paste in there. I can attach documents. And keep in mind, when you're doing this at the time of budget entry, 6 months down the road, if you're looking at an income statement, and it can be a completely different layout, but you're drilling down into the budget column, into this account, you're going to see these notes. Okay, so I always tell clients, try and put as much description as you can on this budget, because you may come across it, when you're looking at your financial results 6 or 9 months down the road, and you're wondering, oh, what was I thinking when I entered this budget value? I entered it a little higher than last year. Why is that? You can also attach your assumptions on a column here, and those will also get committed into the Vivid environment. Now let's look at the distributor. If you look at this distributor window, there's a lot of really good information in this window. First of all, it's telling me I'm on New York City surveying, okay? Branch number 505, there's my surveying natural account. And I can see here, I've got forecast, actuals. If I click on these actuals, I can drill down into the accounts, into the transactions. So let's enter in my budget value. This field is enabled. You can enter values. You can put in $2,400. It's going to do an even distribution by default. But maybe you have trends. Maybe you have seasonalities. Okay. If I click over here under the graph, there's the trends, my actuals. Okay. I've got some seasonalities. I entered a flat $200 budget amount. Let's change that. I want it to follow the same trends. So over here, instead of doing an even distribution, go ahead and follow my actuals. Click the little calculator. Now my budget values have changed and they're following the same trends. And then I realize, oh, well, I think I need to budget more. So I'm going to add 12% on my budget. Click the little calculator. And now, okay, it's a little closer to my actuals. I'll click on apply. It applied that information behind here. And now I can click the down arrow, and now I'm on the next line, and I can do the same thing. So I can put in, let's say, $14,000, maybe follow the same trends, okay, and click apply. So now I'm going to commit this. So let's commit that. You can set up your budgets to be calculated on different driver sets as well. If you're tracking any kind of unit accounts in your ERP, whether it be, units produced, FTEs, number of pay periods in the month, you can use that statistical information to calculate your budget. Or Vivid also offers these driver sets. So you have up to 100 different customizable driver sets. And I've got one here set up for the number of days in the month. So you can see January's got 31, February's got 28. And then over here, if I look at my equipment rentals line, I might be paying a daily rate. So I want to calculate my budget based on that daily rate. Is there a question?
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, I'll just keep going there. If there is a question, just feel free to put it in the chat window. Okay, so on this equipment rentals, I was paying a daily rate. So let's put in 3,600. And you can see again, by default, it doesn't even distribution. But if you look on this drop down, it says days. So again, it picked up this custom driver set, and it's going to calculate it based on the number of days in the month. So you can see here, after I've calculated it, January is higher than February, etc. So you can use anything you want for those custom driver sets. Okay, let's commit this. And we'll talk about consolidations and budget transactions. Those are the last two pieces I'm going to talk about, and then I'll open it up for questions. All right, so I ran this for New York City. Okay, let's change this. This exact same budget spreadsheet, let's say you have to do it for another department. Well, if you didn't have Vivid, this would be a lot of work, right? If you had to populate all the actuals, okay, you have to make sure you're pointing to the right department, and then you have to take these cells and calculate them to add them all together. Okay, that would be a lot of work. Let's go ahead and fill in some values for Buffalo. So I ran this for New York City. Let's pick Buffalo. Let's refresh. And then this spreadsheet's immediately refreshed with Buffalo's information. Let's go ahead and enter some values. Let's commit that. Behind the scenes, Vivid will know, oh, this is a different location. I'm going to save that somewhere else. So if I click on review now, it's the same natural accounts, but I'm changing it to this location, and that's Buffalo. So let's go ahead and commit that. All right. You want to know how you're doing overall. You want to consolidate this information. So let's click the control panel and let's look at New York State. You can see that New York State is a roll-up of Syracuse, Buffalo, and New York City. So let's click that. Click refresh. Now, again, to look at that without Vivid, you'd have to, add up a lot of cells. That'd be a lot of Excel formulas, which can be prone to errors. But let's look at this $6,000. Let's click drill down. There's the 4,800 that I entered for New York City. There's the 1,200 for Buffalo. If I hover over that, there's my notes or my assumptions that I entered. Okay, so consolidations are seamless. With Vivid's budgeting module, you just want to make sure you're committing those budget values at the GL account level, the full GL account level, and then you can consolidate it very easily. Now, let's say this is your master spreadsheet, but maybe on the revenue, so I've got a construction company. And on my commercial construction line item over here, you see that this is shaded in gray. And that's because I've deactivated the budgeting capabilities on this row because it's going to come from somewhere else. So let's look at budget transactions over here. I've got another tab here. So there's my commercial construction revenue line item. There's all my actuals. That's all refreshable. But over here, I've got some budget transactions. I want to list off which projects I'm anticipating closing in the new budget year. So I'm anticipating building a new library. It's going to be at 555 Main Street. I'm going to kick it off in January. I'm going to continue in February, and it'll wrap up in March. Okay, you can see these values are simply totals of these columns, but I'm going to commit that, and I'll commit the transactions as well. So let's commit that. Let's go back to our original budget template. Let's refresh this spreadsheet. Notice this value is going to change. See how that changed to 175,000? Now let's click drill down. We'll click on that account, and there's the detailed transactions that make up that total. So other ways that I've seen our clients build these budget templates is something like this. So notice here, I've got 4 rows, but if I expand each section, the sections shaded in yellow is where I want them to enter that detail. And that detail will automatically roll up into the total, which will automatically roll up into Vivid. So with budget spreadsheets, with the budgeting implementation, we'll typically have a look at what are you doing today? Are your budget spreadsheets working well in the sense that your managers understand the spreadsheet, they understand what to enter where, but possibly where it starts to fall apart is what do you do, A, to prepare the spreadsheet and give it to them in a format that they have the information they need. And then when they give you back that information, you need to get that information back into the ERP. So that's all part of a budgeting implementation is we'll really analyze what's working well with your budget spreadsheets and what's not working well. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I'm going to stop here, check for questions, and open it up.
I don't see any questions in the chat. It looks like we'll give it a minute. It looks like someone may be putting something in now.
Okay.
So we'll give it a second here for that to come through.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, you should have received your Grubhub certificates during the webinar. If you did not, let me know. Okay, so we do have a question. How does the budget info get back into the ERP? And this particular customer uses Sage Intacct. I don't know if that's kind of a generic question, but how does the budget info get back into the ERP?
Yeah, great question. So over here under the Vivid main screen, this is the budget setup window. These are the budget sets that are set up in Vivid. When you've finished populating all your budgets and you're good to go, there's no further changes that are going to be made, you can click on this. So I'm looking at my US company and my 2023 budget. I can lock the budget. First of all, I'd want to lock it all so that no further changes can be made. So you can see here that it's in red. But then I can click on this and I can export it. Now, most ERPs have a way that you can import budget values, okay? So this gets exported in a friendly format that your ERP should be able to import it back in. We do not write directly to the ERP. We don't feel that wouldn't be a very a good practice to push information back into the ERP. We're reading the data only of your ERP, but we're allowing you to export this information, and you should be able to import it back into either Sage or GP or whichever ERP you're using. That's a great question.
Thank you. And then another question just came in. It says, if a company doesn't have much in terms of budgeting processes / templates, do you have samples to help them get started?
Absolutely. I mean, we're happy to provide, something like this. We're happy to provide you this sample. Maybe what we can also do is look at what does your income statement look like? If your income statement, can we take the same rows as your income statement, but add 12 months of actuals and 12 months of budget? So the 12 months of actuals will be refreshing from your accounting system, but we'll activate the 12 columns for budgeting to use Vivid. So that's usually your starting point. Is let's have a look at your income statement. What rows are you presenting on your income statement? Even if it's a summarized level, you can budget at that level as well. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. It just really depends on your needs and how you want to present and capture this information.
Okay. And some people had said, thank you, Christine, for your presentation. I don't see any more questions in the chat right now. We want to say thank you to everybody for attending today. We hope you learned some valuable information. Feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with Christine, or feel free to reach out to her directly if you'd rather do that. But again, thank you for joining us today. Like I said, this has been some really great information, and let us know if you need anything.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.